Chapter 31 Reasons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Beihai Island, Hospital. Although the head was hit, the strange thing is that the impact was not strong. It will be fine if you rest for a while. Well, I understand, please, doctor. The flying squirrel nodded expressionlessly. The doctor gave him a complicated look, then walked out of the ward with a gloomy expression. In the empty ward, Flying Squirrel looked at the unconscious man lying on the hospital bed, pursed his lips, and let out a long breath. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Not far away, Judgy roared with red eyes, punching the wall one after another. The dust on the wall shook off. On the gray walls, holes with blood stains appeared. She called me uncle, she called me uncle. Judgy roared like a wild beast. Blood seeped out of his fists, but he didn't notice it. Guillaume sat motionless next to the hospital bed, his eyes closed, and the fingers of his hands intertwined between his eyebrows. At a certain moment, she suddenly stood up. His delicate eyes were filled with bloodshot eyes, and he turned to stare at the man standing by the window smoking a cigarette. Darren! Why do you still have the heart to smoke? An inexplicable anger rushed into her throat, making her voice hoarse. Didn't you say you are the overlord of Beihai? Don't you think you are very powerful? Watching Darren finish smoking one cigarette, he immediately lit another one. The anger in Guillaume's heart became even more intense, and his eyes were filled with tears. Please speak. She bit her red lips tightly, so hard that she even drew a shocking blood mark. Call. Darren exhaled a long puff of smoke and flicked the ashes as if turning a deaf ear. In the ashtray placed on the windowsill, cigarette butts had piled up into a hill. The ward was eerily silent. It's like a tomb where people's hearts are buried. The flying squirrel looked at Guillaume, who suddenly roared at Darren, and opened his mouth. In the end, he couldn't say anything, with a complicated look on his face. If not, the Navy captain's voice suddenly broke the silence. Guillaume was stunned. She saw a hint of sarcasm slowly rising from the corner of the Navy captain's mouth. Darren turned around slowly and sneered. As he spoke, he glanced at the clock on the wall. The color on Guillaume's face gradually faded. Speechless. Yes, what else can we do? Not to mention a mere admiral of Beihai and colonel of the headquarters, I am afraid that even if the warring States General is present, he will not be able to change the ending of the story. That's a celestial dragon. The world's noble celestial dragons possess all the privileges in the world. If they dare to take action, let alone the navy present, I am afraid that the entire civilian population of Beihai Island will lose their lives because of their stupidity and impulsiveness. Am I still alive? At this time, an extremely weak voice suddenly sounded. Guillaume and others were startled when they heard the sound, and quickly turned around. I saw the man raising his heavy eyelids with difficulty and slowly waking up. Leah. He murmured in despair, and suddenly saw Darren standing by the window smoking out of the corner of his eye, and was suddenly shocked. Lord Marine, Lord Darren. He gritted his teeth and struggled to sit up from the hospital bed, but fell weakly from the bed to the ground. You should have a good rest first. Guillaume eagerly stepped forward to help him, but was rejected by the latter with a wave of his hand. The man's eyes were bloodshot, and his desperate eyes stared at Darren's side face pleadingly. Lord Darren, you saved me. As soon as he said this, Guillaume and Cake next to him were stunned at the same time. At the same time, they remembered what the doctor said just now. The impact was not very strong. Could it be? They all reacted when they saw that the buckle of the man's belt was clearly made of metal on his dirty clothes. Since you survived, let's live well. Darren took a drag on his cigarette, looked at the man calmly, and said calmly. Under my rule, no civilians will be allowed to die abnormally. No, Lord Darren. The man knelt on the ground and looked at the naval captain with a sad expression. Please, save my daughter. When she was very young, her mother died of illness. She is a very well-behaved child, very sensible, never cries or makes trouble, and she also helps me sell flowers on the street. Selling flowers. The man suddenly felt like he was struck by lightning, snapped. He slapped himself hard and cried loudly. It's all my fault. If I had been more capable, if I hadn't let her run to the street to sell flowers, none of this would have happened. The man burst into tears and banged his forehead on the floor. Please, Lord Darren, save Leah, she is everything to me. As long as you save her, I can do anything. I can be your servant, I can kill people for you, my garden, and my money, you can take anything. Please. He frantically rummaged through the mud-stained clothes on his body, and took out a few crumpled, mud-stained banknotes and a pile of coins from his pocket. As if due to physical weakness, his hands continued to tremble, and the coins slipped from his hands and scattered all over the place with a clanking sound. The coin spun on the ground, with mud and blood on its surface, and finally fell. The smooth surface reflects the light and shadow of the world, and the stern face of the naval captain. No, you don't understand me. Darren said calmly. He glanced at the clock on the wall again, then put out the cigarette in his hand, raised his hand to take off the white cloak hanging on the coat rack, and draped it behind his back. The magnificent and cold justice slowly spread out on his broad back, undulating like ocean waves, brewing endless iron and blood. The man stared blankly at the naval captain in front of him, confusion written on his pale face. Seeing this, Darren sighed softly and stared into the man's eyes. I'll say it again, under my rule, no civilians will be allowed to die abnormally. He glanced at the banknotes in the man's hand and the coins scattered on the floor. As for money. Darren smiled. I've already received it. After saying this, Darren took steps towards the door of the ward. Where are you going? Guillaume couldn't help but ask. Somehow, there was an uneasy premonition in her heart. Jiaji was also staring closely at Darren's back, blood dripping from his fists. It's almost time. Darren didn't look back and just said something in a calm tone. Time. Guillaume and Kaki were stunned. They suddenly remembered a detail. Ever since they entered the ward, Darren had been glancing at the clock on the wall from time to time, as if waiting for something. Before they could react, Darren had already walked out of the ward, walking in the cold, long corridor of the hospital. The crisp footsteps of military boots were heard. Darren's eyes gradually became cold and unruly. Darren! A voice suddenly sounded from behind. Darren stopped and turned to look at the flying squirrel who was following quickly. The latter pondered for a moment. Before the incident happened, Major Guillaume had an encounter with the little girl and bought flowers from her. Major Guillaume did not mean it. I know. Darren interrupted. He looked at the flying squirrel in front of him and smiled. It seems you have a good impression of Guillaume. The flying squirrel smiled bitterly, with a flash of emotion in his eyes. There are too few people like her in this sea who purely stick to justice. Darren said nothing. This is true, so this is why he doesn't hate Guillaume. Her anger was not directed at herself. She herself knew very well that no one could change the outcome of the matter in full view of the public. Her anger was more directed at herself. Anger at one's own incompetence, anger at the impotence of justice, anger at the injustice of the world. Anything else? Darren asked again. The flying squirrel was silent for a moment. Are you sure you want to go? No navy has ever done anything like this. You do this, you don't have to. He hesitated. Darren suddenly smiled and said. Flying squirrel, did you know? You're right. I do have many, many reasons not to go. I can even count dozens of them casually. This world is filled with all kinds of tragedies, and the ones caused by the celestial dragons are countless. I am just an admiral of Beihai, and I can't control them at all. If I do this, it is very likely that I will get burned. Once I am discovered, no one can protect me. As a navy, you should have understood long ago that the navy serves the world government. Although you are angry inside, you can just get used to it. There is no need to take such a big risk for a strange little girl. If I am not careful, everything I have finally built in Beihai will be in vain. Yes, there are too many reasons not to go. Darren smiled. And I can only think of 2 reasons for me to go. However, these 2 reasons are enough to overturn all the above reasons for not going. He spoke word by word, his tone unruly and cold, like cold nails piercing deeply into the air. First, Beihai is my territory, and I will not allow such things to happen in my territory, even if he is a Tian Long. Second, that guy's expression was so disgusting that it made me have the urge to kill him. Darren grinned almost cruelly. Still the kind that I can't control no matter what. Ask for everything, thank you very much. Chapter 32 The Only Hope. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. In the corridor of the hospital, the two looked at each other from a distance. Snowflakes were dancing outside the window. The flying squirrel felt that it was colder indoors than outside, cold to the bone. Darren's smile became more intense, unruly, even crazy. You said such a thing has never happened. Yes, indeed never. But never doesn't mean it's impossible, and it doesn't mean it's wrong. His tone suddenly became meaningful. 1 and 0 have very different meanings. As soon as he said this, the flying squirrel seemed to be hit by thunder, and his hands trembled slightly. He only felt an unprecedented fear that gripped him tightly, making him unable to breathe and almost suffocating. But the next second, he suddenly clenched his fists hard, raised his head with determination in his eyes, and gritted his teeth and said, I will go with you. Darren smiled with satisfaction, as if he finally got the answer he wanted. However, he refused directly. No need, it's more convenient for me to do it alone. And even if something happens to me, I will feel relieved if the North Sea Navy fleet is left to you. You stay here and keep an eye on those two guys. I'll be back soon. After saying that, Darren turned around and left without hesitation. It wasn't until Darren's back disappeared at the end of the hospital corridor that the flying squirrel, who stood as still as a statue, slowly exhaled. He actually noticed that a layer of cold sweat had broken out on his back. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly towards the end of the corridor, he solemnly saluted a military salute. Even though there is no one there, suddenly, the flying squirrel unconsciously looked. Out the window, heavy snow was falling all over the sky, and gloom enveloped the whole world. The clouds in the distance were extremely dark, with lightning and thunder, as if a terrifying storm was brewing. The sky is going to change. The flying squirrel murmured, then turned around, his eyes quickly returning to their usual firmness. As expected of you, Colonel Darren. He murmured, his voice was trembling, but a sincere smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It is a great honor to serve as your aide-de-camp. He clenched his fists. Darren is right, it's useless to go alone. With his own strength, he couldn't help Darren at all, but if you stay here, you might be able to do something. 1 minute later, Darren left the hospital and came to the north of Beihai Island alone. This is a stretch of rolling mountains. Due to the heavy snow, the originally lush forests in the mountains have turned into a snow-white world. After making sure that no one discovered his whereabouts, Darren took out a crumpled white paper from his arms. There was only half of the white paper, and there were obvious signs of being torn. Life card. This is your life card. Putting the life card flat in the palm of your hand, you can clearly see that the life card is slowly moving in a certain direction, as if driven by an invisible force. After determining the specific direction, Darren put away the life card. Although it was indeed risky to act at this time, Darren was not one to act recklessly. He was able to climb from the lowest level of a private to his current high position and power step by step, relying on more than just force, prudence, vision, means, and analytical skills. He considers himself to be no less than anyone else. As early as when handing over the task, he had determined that all the CP members who came to escort Hilda's Saint this time belonged to the CP-1 sequence. That's a group of intelligence officers who are worse than the CP-9 who guard Judiciary Island. This also means that none of the guards escorting Shield Saint have mastered hockey. That's enough. Thoughts were floating in his mind, and a weak arc of electricity suddenly danced between the fingers of Darren's hands. An invisible force field instantly spread from his body. The metal wristband on his right hand melted instantly, squirmed like liquid metal, and quickly extended into an extremely thin metal plate. It is about 1 meter long and less than half a meter wide. The front section shows a triangular shape, and the whole is full of streamlined beauty, like a silver-white skateboard, floating steadily in mid-air. Darren stepped onto the skateboard with one step, his knees slightly bent and his upper body leaning forward. The next second, driven by the rioting and boiling magnetic force, the metal skateboard took the naval captain and shot out at an extremely astonishing speed, breaking the speed of sound in the blink of an eye, and bursting into the void. With dull sonic booms, soon it disappeared into the dark clouds with lightning and thunder, and disappeared into the distant sky. At the same time, offshore waters of Beihai Island, a luxurious vessel flying the flag of the world government sailed slowly on the sea. Ah! What a hell of a weather it is. It's snowing even though it's the middle of summer. This isn't the new world. On the deck, the draconian shield saint sneezed, tightened his fine clothes, and couldn't help but curse. The grey sky was covered with heavy snow, and the snowflakes danced down and fell on the deck and mast of the official ship, covering the official ship with a layer of silver frost covering its entire body with white paint. The icy sea breeze blew in the face, and the low temperature caused the glass cover used by Hilda's saint to isolate the air to be covered with white mist. Lord Hilda's saint. According to the established voyage, if there are no accidents, the official ship will arrive at the Holy Land in 2 days. A CP member wearing a black suit came over respectfully, knelt down on one knee, and offered a soft mink coat with both hands. A total of 12 members of the CP1 Department of the World Government will serve you during this return journey. Hilda's saint took the mink coat that seemed to be worth a lot, put it on him, and said with some dissatisfaction. What is CP1? Where are the members of CP0? The Dracos all have their own bodyguards, but almost all of S.H.I.E.L.D. Saint's bodyguards were killed when they encountered World Destroyer Bundy Waldo. In the intelligence agency organization under the world government, CP0, as the highest level of the Cypher POL agency, has the authority to dispatch all personnel from CP1 to CP9. Normally, when encountering such threats and dangers, the Holy Land should at least send one or more CP0 members to take charge of its own security, rather than CP1, who is mainly responsible for intelligence work, the CP1 team leader said with sincere fear. Reporting to Lord Shield Saint, CP0 adults are working with the Navy to hunt down the great pirate Bundy Waldo, and many combat forces have been called in. The CP department has conducted a safety analysis on this return flight, and there will never be any problems. Please rest assured. Hearing this, Hilda's saint could only nod impatiently. Although the Tianlong people have the power to dispatch CP0, that is limited to important events and crisis moments. Under normal circumstances, the real dispatch power of CP0 is actually in the hands of the 5 Old Stars, the highest authority of the world government. Sir, the weather is cold, please return to the cabin to rest. The CP1 team leader said respectfully. Hilda's saint waved his hand. No, take me to see my wife first. The CP1 member nodded, turned around and led the way into another independent cabin. The cabin was dark, filled with the smell of dampness and rancidity, and even a faint smell of blood. In the center is a cage for slaves. The little girl, with her hands and feet shackled and her mouth gagged, sat trembling. The moment she saw the Tianlong people walking in, her eyes that were red from crying showed a stubborn look and she glared angrily. What a nice look. Hilda's saint's heart was pounding with excitement. That's how it feels. When other people knew their identity, they were as obedient and fearful as a pug. Not interesting at all. It's this stubborn look that makes it interesting to conquer. Step by step, he watched her gradually collapse under his own torture, and the light in her eyes disappeared little by little. That kind of process is really the most interesting and enjoyable thing in the world. Wait a moment, my lovely wife, wait a moment, and we will live a happy life after returning to the Holy Land. He couldn't help but throw his head back and laugh. The annoyance caused by the weather was swept away and he walked out of the cabin. Although his blood was already gushing, he could hardly hold it back anymore. But how could the noble celestial dragon have fun in this dirty and lowly cabin? Moreover, her body was still dirty and covered with mud, and she had to go back to the Holy Land to clean it first. Otherwise, even your body will smell low. The cabin door was closed again. In darkness, the dim lights trembled with the ups and downs of the ship's hull, projecting disillusioned light and shadow. The little girl sat there, motionless. There were fresh scrapes on his knees and arms, presumably from being dragged into the cage. The thin body huddled tightly into the corner, hiding. In the shadows, what no one noticed is that her little hands were clenched into fists. Hold a piece of paper hidden in the palm of your hand. That was what the handsome Navy brother put into his hands when he was restraining himself. She didn't know what it was, but somehow, she never let go, as if that could give her safety and shelter, and, in this dark world. The only hope, life card, English, Bible card, also translated as, paper of life, is a special item in the anime One Piece. It is neither afraid of water nor fire. It is made by mixing your own fingernails into the material. It is a representative. The paper containing the owner's life force is usually torn up and given to relatives or friends who are about to be separated, and the torn-off paper will point to the owner. The white paper Ace gave to Luffy in Alabasta is the life card. Chapter 33 The way he looks at me is wrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Remember to deliver the food on time, so as not to starve my beloved wife. After walking out of the cabin containing the cage, Hilda's Shingy commanded the members of CP1. Yes, Lord Shield Saint. The CP1 member nodded respectfully. By the way, there's one more thing. Hilda Saint paused and looked back again. The Navy's top commander in the North Sea, yes, that guy named Darren. CP1 was stunned when he heard this. He remembered the gift sent by Admiral Beihai before, and bent down and said. Do you want to promote him? Darren, the top officer of the North Sea Navy, has the rank of colonel at the Navy headquarters. According to reliable information, he has been included in the Navy headquarters key training sequence and has obtained the qualifications for the Marine Fando officer training camp. This guy is very capable, with good skills and vision. Under his governance, Beihai's order and economy have been significantly improved, and he is indeed worthy of promotion. Promoted? Hilda Saint suddenly laughed, as if he had heard some ridiculous joke. He sneered. No, I mean, look for an opportunity to get him out of the Navy and kill him. Team leader CP1 was stunned for a moment, unable to keep up with the Celestial Dragon's brain circuit. Did that guy piss off the adults? Although the Celestial Dragons have great power and can easily decide a person's life or death, but Darren is no ordinary person. Those who can obtain a spot in the Marina Fando officer training camp are the focus of training by the Navy headquarters. Even with the power of the world government, it is not easy to rashly intervene in one of the key training areas of the Navy headquarters to train officers, and still be a powerful officer with command of the entire North Sea Navy. At least there needs to be a somewhat plausible reason. Aroused? That's not the case. Hilda St. John smiled strangely. CP1 knelt down on one knee in fear. The specific reason is. Hilda Saint glanced at him sideways, and suddenly stepped on the latter's head, kicking him to a bloody head. Do I need a reason for making a decision? No, no need. Seeing the Tianlong people getting angry, the CP1 leader trembled all over, his face turned pale, and he did not dare to wipe the blood off his face. Hilda Saint snorted coldly. If I have to give you one reason. He narrowed his eyes violent. He looked at me wrong. I hate the way he looks at me. Is this enough? After saying this, he walked into his independent cabin. It's different from the cabin where slaves were kept. Hilda Saint's independent cabin was very spacious, brightly lit, and luxuriously decorated. The dry floor was covered with soft rugs, and oil lamps gave off a warm light. Hilda Saint took a look at the gift sent by the so-called Beihai Admiral. Large boxes one after another were filled with gold and silver treasures from the entire cabin. They were emitting a colorful luster, almost making the entire cabin shine with splendor. A satisfied smile appeared on Tianlongren's face. He took off his mink coat and threw it on the ground, passed through the mountains of gold and silver, walked to a secret door at the end of the cabin, and unlocked the door. The secret door was slowly pushed open. Come out, my baby. Hilda Saint licked the corner of his mouth, the desire in his heart bursting out, and his narrow eyes flashed with a violent and excited red light. Soon, a woman knelt on the ground and slowly crawled out from behind the secret door. The woman had a beautiful face, and her hands and feet were heavily shackled. Her expression was numb and blank, her pupils were dull, and saliva was constantly dripping from her lips painted with bright red lipstick. Like a docile puppy, the woman crawled on the ground on hands and feet, as if she had lost her soul, crawled to the feet of the Celestial Dragon, and gently rubbed her face against the former's calf. Twisted madness appeared on Shield Saint's face, and he laughed morbidly. He casually pressed the button of the gramophone, and soon a melodious saxophone music slowly flowed out. The Celestial Dragon picked up a long whip covered with thorns, outside the cabin, on the deck of the official ship. Boss, are you okay? The CP1 members looked at the blood on their leader's face and couldn't help but ask. It's okay. It's our honor to be spurred by Lord Tianlong. The CP1 leader smiled proudly. wiped the blood on his face, took out a pack of cigarettes, gave one to his subordinates, and then lit one himself. The members of CP-1 leaned on the railing of the official ship, exhaling thick smoke from their mouths and looking contented. They all liked this feeling. The smoke from burning fine tobacco, mixed with the moist smell of flying snow, is deeply inhaled into the lungs, making it safe and comfortable, standing on this luxurious and respected official ship, overlooking the endless sea in the distance. It seems that the whole world is in front of you. Every time they went to an island, those stupid low-level civilians would kneel down and worship their masters, looking at them with fear and panic. This feeling gave them the illusion of being of noble birth. This is a day that only outstanding people like them, who serve God, deserve to enjoy. At this time, bursts of melodious and extravagant saxophone music gradually came from the cabin, faintly mixed with the ferocious laughter of the celestial dragons, the sound of whips being whipped, and the painful roars of women. Hearing this familiar music, all the CP-1 members had a flash of envy in their eyes. Lord Shield Saint has started again. I just wonder if he will generously give us his playthings after this time. Hey hey. They seemed to have remembered something worth recalling, and smiles that all men understood appeared on their faces. You guys. The leader of CP-1 looked at his subordinates helplessly and shook his head with a smile. He was about to say something, but suddenly he was stunned, because he found that his subordinates were staring behind him with horrified eyes. A chill came to my brain. The leader of CP-1 turned around and his eyes widened little by little. In front of the luxurious official ship, a man on a metal skateboard is floating in the air, with a wide white cloak behind him fluttering in the sea breeze. In the falling snow all over the sky, he was raising his finger, making a silencing gesture to them with murderous intent and a smile on his face. Shoo! Please give me all your support, thank you very much, and ask for 5-star praise. Chapter 34 Goodbye. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The music played by the saxophone gradually reached its climax. The music with a wide range of sounds is like the raging waves on the sea, bumping and undulating, surging. Inside the cabin, the Tianlong people danced wildly and whipped them mercilessly with the iron whip in their hands. His expression was crazy and excited, with a twisted and sick smile on his face. The footsteps follow the rhythm of the music, and the sound of whipping is intertwined with the melodious and exciting saxophone. Music, echoing each other, snapped. 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 The sound of the long whip hitting the delicate flesh was heard. The woman gritted her teeth and her body was already covered with dense blood marks. Burning pain came from the wound on her body, but she did not dare to cry out. She just gritted her teeth and struggled to maintain a flattering smile on her beautiful face. No, that's not right. Your eyes are wrong. Shield Saint suddenly roared angrily, and the hand covered with gemstones and rings swung the whip again, with more and more fierce force. You should look at me with unruly eyes. You should hate me. You should hate me. Think about it carefully. I killed your father, I killed your mother, remember it carefully. Snapped. The sharp whip fell through the air, leaving a bloody wound on the woman's chest. The woman groaned, her body covered in blood, and she lay wet on the ground, gasping for air, but her eyes became more humble and submissive. She knew very well that if she showed hatred in her eyes, it would only further arouse the sick and twisted desires of the celestial dragons. Instead, he will blindly obey and surrender, and he will often lose interest in a moment. Damn it! Damn it! Hilda Saint strode forward and slapped the woman on the face with his fat hand. The woman's body flew backwards 2 meters, her face was visibly swollen, a trace of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth, and her long black hair was messy. It's so boring. The Tianlong man cursed breathlessly, getting angrier as he thought about it. He directly pulled out the golden pistol stuck in his waist, opened the safety catch with a click, and pressed it directly against the woman's blood-stained forehead. He originally thought that if she could please him, he would let her live. It seems unnecessary now. Sure enough, the noble god has no need to show any mercy to these humble, dirty ants. After all, you found your next great toy, right? Thinking of this, Hilda Saint laughed cruelly again. I'm sorry, my beloved wife. He looked down at his 17th wife, his finger lightly on the trigger of his pistol. By now, However, at this moment, Hilda Saint suddenly saw the woman's pupils suddenly shrink, her originally empty expression gradually took on color, and her eyes stared directly behind her. Huh! Shield Saint frowned. He smelled something strange. This smell was very familiar to him. It smells like blood, the extremely rich smell of blood. At this moment, a squeaking and rubbing sound suddenly sounded behind him. Hilda Saint turned back and looked at the cabin door strangely. The cabin door is being slowly pushed open, and at the crack of the door on the ground, bright red blood was flowing in from the outside. As the cabin door is fully opened, a strong wind carrying flying snow rushed in from the outside world. A tall figure covered in blood stood there, with short black hair covered in snowflakes, and a wide white cloak fluttering behind him, smelling of blood. Hilda Saint suddenly widened his eyes and couldn't help but exclaimed, "It's you!" He stared hard at Darren standing at the door of the cabin, and out of the corner of his eyes caught a glimpse of the tragic scene on the deck outside the cabin. Bodies in black suits hung in the air. The 12 CP members responsible for the escort had completely lost their vitality. Their bodies were directly penetrated by rusty steel, and they were in a mess. Like broken clothes hanging in the wind and snow, blood dripped from their corpses, staining the entire deck red. Hilda Saint's pupils suddenly shrank into thin needles. This guy, he actually killed my men. Could it be? In an instant, a bottomless chill suddenly surged out from the soles of the celestial dragon's feet, running up his spine and up to his forehead, making his scalp feel numb. Admiral of the North Sea, the highest commander of the Navy in the North Sea, Captain Darren of the Navy headquarters, I have met Lord Shield Saint. Darren, who was standing at the door, narrowed his eyes, bowed slightly, and smiled. Boom! The golden pistol spit out tongues of fire. The bullet hit Darren's forehead without any bias, making a sound like gold and iron, and flew out with a clang, causing sparks to fly. It seems that your marksmanship is quite good. Darren smiled and took steps forward. You. When Hilda Saint saw that the shot was ineffective, he was so shaken that he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Darren, what do you want to do? What do I want to do? This is a really good question. Darren smiled, paused for a second pretending to think, and winked at Hilda Saint. What do you think, Lord Shield Saint? Hilda Saint was stunned for a moment, and then said angrily. No matter what you want to do, you have offended me and you must die. Seeing the naval captain getting closer and closer to him, he frantically pulled the trigger. Bang 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 bang. The bullets continuously hit the Navy captain's body, but bounced off one after another, leaving several craters on the floor and walls of the cabin. After firing several shots, Hilda Saint looked at the man who came to him with astonishment on his face. You! Darren slapped him directly in the face, and the glass cover he was wearing was shattered at the same time. Countless glass shards punctured the Tianlong man's face, and blood flowed out. Under Darren's terrifying power, Shield's swine-like face twisted and deformed, and his entire body spun in mid-air and flew several meters backwards, crashing into the cabin of the ship. With a bang, the wooden planks of the cabin shattered. Shield Saint let out a miserable wail, stared at Darren with his bloodshot eyes resentfully, and pointed at the latter. You despicable! Laugh! 2 pieces of steel suddenly sprang out from the bottom of the cabin, wrapped around the celestial dragon's hands like tree roots, penetrated directly through his fat hands, and nailed Shield Saint to the cabin wall. Ah 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 ah! Shield Saint screamed like a slaughtering pig. Chapter 35 The Rules of Beihai. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The piercing screams of the celestial dragons resounded throughout the entire world government official ship at this moment. In the cabin, the woman with bruises all over her body was lying in a pool of blood, staring blankly at the screaming god. Her mind went blank. This Navy actually injured the celestial dragon. No. He wanted to kill a celestial dragon. He's crazy. Still don't want to die. All actions that offend the celestial dragons, no matter who they are, will usher in crazy revenge from the world government, and even the Navy Admiral will be dispatched for this purpose. This is a forbidden area that no one can cross in this sea. You're too noisy. Darren frowned and waved his hand as if impatiently. Following his movement, 2 steel bars protruded from the cabin floor, roared out, and suddenly pierced Hilda's saint's feet like sharp blades, nailing them into the wall. Drips of blood gushed out from his pierced hands and feet, dripping onto the ground and forming a shocking pool of blood in less than a few seconds. Ah 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 ah. You're dead. Darren. The unbearable pain made Hilda's saint scream again, and he almost fainted from the pain. He is a celestial dragon who stood on the top of the mountain when he was born. He is the god of this world and a descendant of the Creator. I have been pampered since I was a child, let alone being hit hard like this. Even bumps have never happened to me before. I thought that the Almighty God. His blood is golden. I didn't expect that he is no different from ordinary people. From this point of view, the celestial dragons are not gods either. Darren smiled. Hilda's saint's eyes were bloodshot and he stared at him, that damn smile again. A smile that was hypocritical and sarcastic, as if he didn't even care about himself as a god. It was this smile that made Shield Saint dislike Darren. What annoyed him most was that he couldn't see the familiar fear in Darren's eyes, the fear that a humble commoner should have when looking at the world's nobles made endless anger surge in his heart. Aren't you afraid of the world government's revenge when you do this? Do you think you can escape? Hilda's saint panted heavily and roared like a beast. Revenge? Darren laughed. Who would have known that I did this? If nothing else. He pointed to the mountains of gold and silver treasures piled in the cabin. At least in the eyes of everyone on Beihai Island, I, a scum of the North Sea Navy, sent a large sum of money to the great Lord Shield Saint in order to flatter him. Who would think that a navy would dare to take action against the celestial dragons? Hearing Darren's words, Hilda's saint's pupils shrank. He endured the dizzy feeling caused by massive blood loss, gritted his teeth and said, Darren, I don't understand why you want to attack me. He suddenly seemed to realize something. Is it that little girl? From Darren's silence, Shield Saint got a definite answer. Just because of a civilian. His face was full of disbelief. Just a lowly commoner. Why do you have to do this? Darren looked quietly at the ferocious-looking celestial dragon in front of him. The blood on the floor had spread under his military boots. That's not just a civilian. He suddenly said. Those are civilians under my jurisdiction. Shield Saint roared. Why do you care so much about a civilian's life and death? Besides, don't think I don't know. Do you think you are a good person? Who in the entire Beihai doesn't know that you make money from lowly civilians by supporting the mafia? After all, you are no more noble than me. Darren suddenly laughed. He crossed his fingers. The steel wrapped around Hilda's saint's right arm suddenly strangled and contracted with force, snapped. A bloody severed arm rose into the air. Ah! Hilda's saint's whole body twitched in pain, and yellow urine gradually leaked out from the crotch of his luxurious silk robe. You're right, I'm not a good person, that's why I'm here. Darren said calmly. If I were a good person, I probably wouldn't dare to come. Of course. I actually don't want to come, let alone deal with disgusting Tianlong people like you. I just want to live my life peacefully and run the North Sea Fleet. But I took the money from the father and daughter. Did you receive the money? Hilda's saint gasped crazily, and his eyeballs almost bulged out of their sockets because of the pain. How much did you charge her? I am a celestial dragon, and I have a lot of money. As long as you let me go, I can give you whatever money you want. No, it's not just money, I can give you whatever you want. Women, not just humans, I can also get you women from other races. Power. I can promote you to Vice Admiral immediately. I can give you whatever you want. Darren suddenly sighed. Can you give me whatever I want? The Tianlong man gasped weakly, a flash of joy flashed in his eyes, and nodded with a smile. That's right, you just have to ask, just ask. Anything will do. It's really the consistent celestial dragon style. I do have something I really want. Darren looked at Hilda's saint, tilted his head, and a sinister smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth. I want to kill you. Hilda's saint was stunned for a moment, but the next second, he laughed wildly. Kill me, you will die too. Darren, you didn't expect that, did you? The world government's official ships are all equipped with secret surveillance phone bugs. At this moment, the world government has seen the picture here. You're dead. Ha 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 ha. He stared at Darren with crazy eyes, trying to find the panic and fear in the latter's eyes, but he failed. Smile. The naval colonel still had that annoying smile on his face. A flash of extreme uneasiness flooded into Hilda Saint's mind, making his heart beat wildly. Sild Saint, compared to other celestial dragons, you are the smart one. Darren spoke with interest. I can give you a chance. Even as he spoke, no movement was seen from him, and all the steel restraining Hilda Saint was loosened. The celestial dragon slid off the wall like a puddle of mud, gasping for air. Darren took out a military phone bug and tossed it casually. Try it, if you can get the signal through. Facing the Navy captain's half-smiling eyes, Hilda's sacred's heart trembled. He gritted his teeth and tried to dial the phone number. 1 second, 0.2 seconds, 0.3 seconds, the military phone bug remained slumbering. No response. All the blood on Hilda Saint's face instantly faded, leaving only pale white. Communication signals are blocked. Impossible. He muttered with absent-minded eyes. At this moment, his soul seemed to be pulled out of his body, and his expression was blank and dull. The communication signals of the phone bug are all blocked. How is this possible? The signal is blocked, which means that no one in the world will know anything that happens on this official ship. Hilda Saint trembled all over, and deep despair finally emerged in his eyes. Darren looked at him quietly, with illusory arcs of electricity flashing between his fingers. He is not an idiot who acts rashly in the heat of the moment. From the moment Hilda Saint refused to give himself any dignity and insisted on taking the little girl away, he decided to kill this ugly pig. So while he was capturing the little girl, he put his life card into the latter's hands. In this way, Hilda Saint's route will be known. By handing over the security mission, he also successfully obtained information about the CP members in the escort mission. In this way, there is only one last problem left to kill Shield Saint. Monitor. Monitoring phone bugs are usually installed on the official ships of the world government to ensure the safety of the celestial dragons. It's just that it doesn't make any sense for my own abilities. To the extent that his magnetic fruit is developed, he can create a magnetic field area with a diameter of about 100 meters centered on him. Under the influence of the magnetic field, the phone bug signal will be completely shielded. The range is enough to cover the entire official ship. This was inspired by Doflamingo's birdcage, and this is the greatest confidence that Darren dares to take action against the Tianlong people. No. Why? Since you know I'm stalling for time, why don't you just kill me? Hilda Saint suddenly raised his head and stared at Darren, roaring madly. He doesn't understand. Obviously this guy has great strength that can easily kill him, and he also understands his intentions. Why doesn't he just kill him? Darren narrowed his eyes and raised a teasing smile. Because killing you cleanly would be too cheap for you. As he spoke, the despair on the faces of the father and daughter on Beihai Island flashed through his mind. At least, before you die, I want you to taste the taste of despair. After the words fell, Darren slowly took out his pistol. In the desperate and gloomy eyes of the Tianlong people, the muzzle of a pistol, that he gently pressed it against his forehead. No. Shield Saint's eyes finally filled with an unprecedented fear, and he screamed in horror. I am a Tianlong, if you kill me. Boom. Gunfire. Without hesitation, Darren pulled the trigger. The bullet passed through his forehead and exited from the back of his head, punching a large hole in his head. Large swaths of liquid, red and white, were mixed together and splashed in the shape of a fan on the bulkhead. Hilda Saint's body twitched, and the light in his pupils quickly dissipated. Damn, I took the money, just because of a untouchable. He slowly fell to the ground. The expression is frozen there, with confusion, astonishment, fear, all kinds of emotions intertwined together, forming an absurd and wonderful ukiyo-e. He died. Darren stood in front of the celestial dragon's body, looking down at him condescendingly, and said calmly. After receiving the money, you have to work. This is Beihai's rule. Asking for all support, thank you very much. Chapter 36 Motto. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You, kill him. The naked and scarred woman looked at the Tianlong man lying in a pool of blood with a horrified expression. Her voice trembled and her face turned pale as she looked at the spreading blood. She only felt that everything in front of her was extremely unreal, like a dream. You, killed the Tianlong people. She murmured over and over again, reaching out and touching the blood flowing on the ground, feeling the warm touch of the blood. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile bit by bit. You killed him. The smile gradually turned crazy. Ha 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 ha. You killed him. He's finally dead. Ha 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 ha. The woman laughed happily, but her eyes gradually oozed with bloody tears. He is finally dead, woo-woo. She choked up and finally burst into tears. Darren looked at this woman who was laughing and crying, with a crazy and twisted expression, and his eyes couldn't help but droop. You're free. He said. Free? There was unspeakable bitterness on the woman's face, and she turned around slightly, allowing Darren to see her naked back. On the back, a bloody mark of flying dragon's hoof was extremely dazzling. How can I be free in this world? She raised her head and smiled at Darren. The smile was a little calm, even liberating. Thank you, Lord Marine. She climbed up with difficulty, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed to Darren sincerely. I have no reason to live anymore. All the people I cherish in this world have died in his hands. Please do what you have to do. Darren gave her a long look. He saw the stubborn will to die in her eyes. He didn't know what she had gone through and how long she had been tortured by Shield Saint, but he has always adhered to a principle: don't judge other people's lives easily unless you have personally experienced the pain others have experienced. I see. Well, have a good trip. After saying this, Darren turned around without hesitation and walked towards the outside of the cabin. The woman knelt on the ground, watching the Navy captain's retreating figure, and raised her hand to wipe the tears from her face. Her eyes were no longer dull and numb. A bright, warm smile slowly spread across her blood-stained face, like a flower that grows and blooms tenaciously on a cliff. Thank you very much. Lord Marine. If I survive, it will be very inconvenient for you. She pursed her lips and smiled, slowly picked up the golden pistol on the ground. Bang bang. She gritted her teeth and fired 2 shots at the Tianlongren's body. Dad, Mom, I'm here to accompany you. Her smile was as bright as a flower. The gun was pointed at his temple. She kept the last bullet for herself. Boom. There were gunshots and the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground behind him, but Darren's footsteps did not pause at all. He is not the Holy Mother. It is impossible to force a person who is determined to live and die to muster the courage to live. She didn't have a choice before, but now she at least has the freedom to choose to die. Suppressing his inner emotions, Darren walked quickly towards the cabin where the slaves were kept on the official ship. The locked hatch flew straight out, without any obstruction. Darren walked inside step by step. The fishy, damp smell hit my face, and the dark yellow oil lamp swayed in the turbid air. When Leah, who was huddled in the corner of the cage, heard the movement, a flash of panic flashed across her face at first. When she saw that the person coming was Darren, the panic expression was quickly replaced by surprise. Darren waved his hand. The cage made of steel instantly collapsed, twisted, and then dismembered. Even the shackles on the little girl's body broke and fell to the ground. Navy brother. The shackles that sealed her mouth fell off, and the little girl let out a sweet cry, stumbled towards Darren, and hugged the latter's calf tightly. Darren rubbed her head and smiled. Let's go, I'll take you home. Leah's eyes turned red and she nodded heavily, so Darren took her hand and walked out of the cabin. However, when Leah walked out of the cabin and saw the bodies strung up with steel on the deck, her face suddenly turned pale. She subconsciously looked into the cabin. The terrible, ugly Tianlong man fell in a pool of blood. Leah couldn't help but let go of Darren's hand and took 2 steps back in horror. Suddenly, she gritted her teeth and slammed against the mast on the side. Darren reached out and grabbed her clothes, lifting her up like a kitten. What are you doing? He frowned. The little girl cried and said, I can't survive, can I? If I survive, I will bring a lot of trouble to Brother Navy. Darren was startled and sighed. He thought of the little girl's father's previous behavior of hitting the wall, and felt helpless. It's really like a father and daughter who are in love with each other. he picked up the little girl and said seriously. Since you survived, let's live well. Your father is waiting for you to come home. I received your money, so I must protect you. The little girl was stunned and said a little embarrassedly. But the money I paid is very little. Darren smiled and said. Enough. A metal skateboard floated over, he stepped on it, and his figure gradually rose into the sky. Hovering in the sky, Darren held the dirty little girl in one hand, overlooking the bloody world government official ship below. He slowly raised his hand, spread his fingers, and grabbed it from afar. Rumble, click, click, click. Driven by the metal of the official ship's hull, the entire official ship continued to compress, collapse, and twist under the force of the strange magnetic field. With a roar, the gunpowder and loaded artillery in the cabin were quickly detonated, and raging fire shot up into the sky, igniting and covering the entire ship like a huge fireball. The hot and powerful shock wave hit her face, causing the little girl to subconsciously bury her head in the Navy captain's chest, as if that was the safest place in the world. The official ship gradually sank, and the flag of the world government, which represented the highest authority, was reduced to ashes in the flames. Black smoke billowed into the sky. Among the thick black clouds, there were bursts of lightning and thunder, and the storm that had been brewing for a long time was about to come. In that hazy, swaying, twisted firelight, Darren seemed to see faces looming in it, as if in a dream. He saw Guillaume on the street with a blank look in his eyes and a rose tightly in his hand. I saw Kaji punching the wall to vent his anger. He saw a man kneeling in front of him, taking out a large pile of coins and begging him. I saw a woman who laughed and committed suicide with a golden pistol. I saw the ugly and grinning face of the celestial dragon. Face after face, picture after picture, are constantly looming in the light of the sky. Darren let out a long breath. In the deepest part of my heart, the feeling of suffocation and boredom finally, completely dissipated at this moment. As the thought came through, an unspeakable emotion and power surged in his chest, neither vomiting nor happiness, tear. A pale thunder suddenly tore through the dark sky and illuminated the whole world. All-consuming storms followed. The storm is rising. The naval colonel was suspended high in the sky, his aura rising continuously, and his broad cloak danced behind him like a wild dragon, majestic, domineering, and forbidding aura, as if responding to the storm between heaven and earth, burst out from his body. The world changes color. At the same time, in Darren's perception, a new project slowly emerged. Overlord color domineering, 20. The king's spirit is awakened. Chapter 37 World Destroyer. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. At the same time, on the bloody cliff, the majestic red earth continent seems to have submerged into the sky. Holy Land Marie Joya. There are many buildings with blue roofs and white walls, and the streets are spotlessly clean, surrounded by vegetation, rockeries, fountains, and artificial gardens. The grand and ancient buildings are located on a hillside surrounded by birds and flowers, like a fairyland. This is the land of the gods and the holy land of Mary Joa, the abode of the noble, holy, and great gods. Suddenly, a horrified exclamation shattered the peace and tranquility of the land of the gods. How can this be? In a splendid building in the land of the gods, an official responsible for the daily management of the world's nobles turned pale and sat down on the ground in fear, trembling uncontrollably. His voice quickly attracted the attention of other officials. When they heard the sound and rushed into the main hall of the building, they almost forgot to breathe as they looked at the life card that gradually burned and turned into ashes, and their minds went blank. Lord Shield Saint. That's Lord Shield Saint's life card. According to the latest information, isn't he in the North Sea, not long after he boarded the returning official ship? How can this be? All the officers and ships looked at each other in fear, their throats rolled, and they swallowed saliva unconsciously. Their throats were as dry as if they were on fire. Draconian Shield Saint is dead. Quick! Report to Lord Wulaoxing. The leading official shuddered violently, supported his limp body, gritted his teeth and got up from the ground, roaring angrily. So the news spread quickly. Holy Land Marie Joanne suddenly became tense. CP agents in suits shuttled through the streets like ghosts. The Holy Land guards galloped on horses on the neat streets, scaring the residents to tremble. The officials looked towards the direction of the stairway to the sky with fearful eyes, and their hearts were filled with turmoil. The sacred and noble celestial dragon is dead. This is the first time since the Valley of the Gods incident 8 years ago that a god has fallen again on this sea, North Sea, a certain sea area. The sky was dark, and the surging black clouds were rolling in like a thick city wall that was about to collapse. The torrential rain enveloped the entire world, and the warships were bumping under the turbulent waves, as if they were being continuously thrown up by invisible giants. Boom! Dense artillery sprayed out from the warship's gun barrel, and the firelight bloomed one after another. The black gun barrel had been burned by the high temperature until it glowed red. The roar and explosion of the cannonballs burst into violent flames on the distant sea surface, and magnificent columns of water rose into the sky. Bundy Waldo. You can't run. On the warship, Sengoku, wearing black-rimmed glasses and a black beard tied into pigtails, stepped on the bow of the ship, stared at the pirate ship in the center of the distant artillery bombardment, and roared loudly. The majestic torrential rain poured down from the sky and bounced off the deck, shrouding the warship in a layer of white mist. Many sailors on the deck faced the heavy rain and quickly loaded ammunition into the heavy cannons. Every time a cannonball came out of the barrel, the warship trembled. Chia ha 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 ha. Warring states, if you want to arrest me, you are still far away. On the pirate ship, a tall figure stood on the bow of the ship, smiling ferociously with his arms folded. He was wearing a bright red captain's coat and a horned helmet. His gray-green beard trembled slightly with his laughter, and he exuded a deep and powerful aura. World Destroyer Bundy Waldo. The captain of the Ward Pirates, with a bounty of 200 million Baileys. The legendary Great Pirate, a man on par with Whitebeard and Roger. Cannonballs exploded around the pirate ship, raindrops of sea water splashed up, and thick smoke billowed, but Bundy Waldo didn't care at all. He just stared at the warship with violent eyes, and a cruel smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. In terms of firepower, I have never lost to anyone. His figure disappeared from the place like a ghost. There seemed to be a ghost shadow moving through the dense rain curtain, so fast that a long vacuum area briefly appeared in the rain curtain. The next second, Bundy Waldo had appeared on the other side of the deck, holding a cannon with both hands. Young men, adjust your course and let those world government thugs see the power of our Ward Pirates. He shouted loudly. Roar. The crew members of the Ward Pirates had fanaticism in their eyes, and they raised their arms and shouted. In the rough waves, a pirate turned the rudder of the ship. Attention! Full right rudder. The moment the words fell, the hull of the pirate ship made a creaking sound, and it tilted significantly amidst the violent storm and bombardment. The deck suddenly became flooded, and the pirate clung tightly to the slippery railing to avoid falling into the sea. Heavy rain splashed on the deck. Bundy Waldo's hands grasped the cannon firmly like iron pliers. As the hull shifted, the fixed artillery barrel gradually aimed at the huge warship. Didn't you just sink an official ship belonging to the celestial dragons and pigeons, and chase me for a day and a night? He made a sound of disdain and grinned crazily in the rain. Come on, warring states. Let me see the power of destroying the world. He jerked the cannon's fuse. Boom. A dark cannonball burst out of the barrel and cut through the rain. Momo 50 times cannon. Along with Bundy Waldo's cold shout, some invisible power seemed to spread out. White air waves spread from the cannonballs that roared through the sky. Then an incredible scene happened. I saw that the flying cannonball suddenly expanded and doubled, but the volume increased dozens of times in the blink of an eye. The jet speed of the black cannonball with a diameter of more than 20 meters also increased sharply. After reaching the highest point of the parabola, it fell crazily towards the warship where Sengoku was located. It was so fast, fell so hard, and was so big that it even rubbed against the air to create bursts of fiery red air waves. From a distance, it looked like a meteorite breaking through the clouds and falling from the sky. This is Bundy Waldo's ability. Momo fruit can increase the speed and size of objects, and because of the doubling of speed and volume, the power of the amplified cannonball will also increase exponentially. It can be said without mercy that once this shell hits and explodes, the power of the explosion is enough to easily wipe out a town. The red light continued to expand in the sky above the head, but a huge shadow suddenly enveloped everyone on the warship. The strong wind and waves fell from high in the sky, and the entire warship sank, and the deck even made a crackling sound. Damn! Warring States roared with red eyes. If this shell were allowed to hit the warship, I am afraid that the navy on board, including himself, would be destroyed in the raging waves of the sea. Military boots stepped heavily on the bow of the ship, and Sengoku's figure flew up like a cannonball. A magnificent, bright golden light suddenly lit up high in the sky. The navy were shocked to see their admiral transform into a huge golden war Buddha in an instant, and shoot out a palm towards the huge cannonball falling from the sky. Big Buddha impact. Boom. The vast golden shock wave hit the cannonball hard. After the world was briefly silent for a second, an earth-shaking explosion exploded high in the sky. A fireball with a diameter of more than 100 meters rose into the sky, and countless shell fragments fell towards the warship like a dense rain of fire. Sengoku's face changed slightly as he regained his human form in mid-air, and he shouted angrily. Porcellino. I know. A scattered voice came out in a heavy rain, and then a golden light roared high into the sky. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. The sky was full of light bullets like a torrential rain, constantly washing away the falling shell fragments, and the torrential firelight completely illuminated the dim sky. In the billowing smoke, the figure of Warring States landed steadily. The strong wind blew away the smoke. His eyes were fixed on the pirate ship escaping towards the storm in the distance. He gritted his teeth and was about to give the order to pursue. A hoarse voice suddenly sounded from behind. Stop the pursuit, something happened. Sengoku frowned. I saw a CP0 member wearing a strange patterned mask walking out of the cabin quickly. This time the crusade against Bundy Waldo was jointly led by the CP department and the Navy, and the intelligence source mainly came from the CP department. Retreat? Bundy Waldo has been forced into a desperate situation by us, and ahead is the famous chaotic sea area of the North Sea. In such a weather environment, it is impossible for him to escape. Warring States retorted. Unexpectedly, the CP0 shook his head. Bundy Waldo doesn't matter anymore. He took out a military phone bug and handed it to Senguo. An old, gloomy voice slowly came from the military phone bug. Sengoku, retreat immediately. Warring States was stunned and subconsciously said. Lord Wulaoxing, the operation is about to succeed. The big pirate Bundy Waldo has entered the ambush circle according to our plan. Just give me a little more time. Before he could finish his words, he was interrupted rudely by the other party. We order you to retreat immediately. Warring States was furious and asked incomprehensively. Excuse me, sir, why is this? The government and Navy have spent a lot of resources and energy on this operation. Sild Saint died in the North Sea. The voice of Wulaoxing on the other side of the phone made Warring States stunned. The Celestial Dragon is dead. How can this be? Sengoku, as the current only admiral of the Navy headquarters, your top priority is to thoroughly investigate the cause of Shield Saint's death. Do you understand? Other than that, all other matters are unimportant. The unquestionable voice of Wulaoxing came out. On the deck, Senghua, who was soaked by the heavy rain, took a deep breath, and the blood in his heart seemed to be extinguished by the cold rain. I see. He gritted his teeth. Upon seeing this, CP0 put away the phone bug and turned around and walked into the cabin. At this time, countless golden photons continued to gather around Warring States, and soon reshaped into a human form. He is tall and unusually tall, wearing a yellow and white striped suit, exaggerated toed sunglasses, and a beard. Rank of Major General, the new generation monster of the Navy. Porcellino. How about I continue to catch up, Warring States General? Porcellino looked at Sengoku's livid face and said slowly. Sengoku glanced bitterly at the ward pirates, who had gradually disappeared into the distant storm, and suddenly punched the railing hard, smashing it to pieces. No need, let's return. He gritted his teeth and said this sentence from between his teeth. His expression turned extremely ugly. As his adjutant, Porcellino's strength is quite good, far exceeding the level of ordinary lieutenant generals. but compared to big pirates like Bundy Waldo who can be on an equal footing with Whitebeard and Roger, he still has a certain gap. Let him chase alone. If he misses and falls into the hands of Bundy Waldo, it will be a loss that the Navy headquarters cannot bear. A future admiral, a guy with as much talent as a monster, can't have any accidents, but what warring states didn't expect was that after spending so much resources and energy, they were just a little bit close to arresting Bundy Waldo, but in the end it ended up like this, a failure. He was unwilling to give in. However, Sengoku also understood that he could not refuse the orders of the world government. A Tianlong man died in the same sea area, now he is the only general in the Navy headquarters. Due to circumstances and reasons, he must put down all the important things in his hands and go to investigate. Only who in Beihai dares to take action against the Tianlong people? Warring states stood in a heavy rain, and the rain slapped his slightly pale face. His expression was uncertain and he was deep in thought. Chapter 38 Cyborg Kong and 5 Old Stars. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Late that night, Admiral Sora, who was awakened from his sleep by his own soldiers, suppressed the irritability of being deprived of sleep, and took a ship overnight to rush to the Holy Land Marie Joa, on the inland river of the Red Earth continent. He transferred to the official ship of the world government, and then to a horse-drawn carriage on the way. After 3 hours of exhausting travel, the admiral finally entered Panga City, the inner city of Mariajoya, the Holy Land. Admiral Kong Shinian is close to 80 years old, but he doesn't look old or senile at all. He is energetic and has deep eyes. He has a mohawk hairstyle, his gray hair stands up like steel needles, and his face is cold and resolute. The muscles on the burly, open chest seemed to be carved with knives and axes, and the blocks were clear. Against the bronze skin, there was a rough and violent beauty. His body exuded a sense of majesty and majestic strength as steep as a mountain. The marshal's cape covered with golden wheat ears on his shoulders fluttered in the wind, making him very imposing. The dusty Marshal Kong looked up at the staircase that seemed to lead to the kingdom of God, surrounded by countless white ghosts hidden in the dark. He straightened his chest and straightened his back, just like his title of Steel Bone. Stepping forward, I ascended the snow-white, holy staircase to heaven. Soon he completed the road to the sky, passed through a small garden with a pleasant environment and the sound of birds and flowers, and came to a small foreign-style building in the flower room. The exterior wall of the small foreign-style building is entirely white, with lush ivy in the corner. The vicissitudes of life have left mottled traces on the wall, and the dome is as sharp as a giant sword. Marshal Cyborg Kong. 2 waiters wearing black suits and white gloves stood outside the door, bowing slightly toward Cyborg Kong. Cyborg Kong nodded towards them, took a deep breath, and opened the door of the small foreign building. Inside the small foreign-style building is a meeting hall with elegant and simple decoration. On the intricately carved coffee table is a pot of tea that has been boiled. The 5 old men were either standing or sitting, exuding the aura of superiors who could not be looked directly at or violated. These 5 old men are the highest power in the world's government today, the 5 old stars. Marshal Cyborg Kong pays homage to Lord Wulaoxing. Gungu Kong stepped forward calmly, speaking neither humble nor arrogantly. He glanced at one of the 5 old stars on the far left, wearing a black custom-made suit. He is bald, has a mustache, and has a shocking scar on his face. Congratulations to Lord Damocles for being elected as the new supreme power with a high vote. The new 5 elders, Damocles, waved his hands and said in a hoarse voice. There's no need to say such pretentious words, Sora. You should know very well why we asked you to come here this time. Gang Gukong said in a deep voice. Of course it's clear, but before that, I have a question to ask all of you adults. He paused, and his eyes suddenly became solemn. Why did you, your lords, bypass me, the Navy Marshal, and give the retreat order directly to General Sengoku? The operation to arrest Bundy Waldo has been planned for a long time and is about to be completed successfully. If you miss this opportunity, there will be endless troubles in the future. Sora, are you questioning the government's decision? St. Damocles asked in displeasure. According to regulations, any action that offends the Tianlong people must be punished by the admiral. Sild Saint died in the North Sea, and we haven't held your navy accountable for your negligence. Or do you think that the lives of the world's nobles are not as important as a mere arrest mission? As soon as these words came out, the other 5 old stars also cast indifferent glances at Cyborg, and the pressure suddenly surged in like a tide, facing the supreme power of the world government. Cyborg Kong felt a chill down his spine, but he did not bend down. The safety of the lives of the world's nobles is of course important, but the task of arresting Bundy Waldo is equally urgent. This guy is extremely ambitious and extremely powerful. He has the power to destroy the world. My lords, please don't forget that Lord Shield Saint was shipwrecked in the first place because of Bundy Waldo's attack. If Bundy Waldo is not solved for a day, this sea will not be peaceful for a day. Besides, I can send other personnel from this department to investigate the cause of Shield Saint's death. Who can you send? The blonde 5 old star interrupted him coldly. A sarcastic sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. With the establishment of the 3 generals of the Navy headquarters, Zifa has been relegated to the second line. Garp has refused to be promoted many times. Besides, is it possible that you can send Garp to investigate the cause of death of the Tianlong people? Or should you, the Navy Marshal, go there in person? North Sea. Listening to Wulaoxing's aggressive questioning, Cyborg Kong opened his mouth, but was speechless after all. I feel depressed inside. As a naval marshal, he seems to have amazing power, but in fact, there are only a few people under his command who can command. Needless to say, Zifa, that kid has already withdrawn from the front line because of the tragedy that year. If he hadn't earnestly persuaded him to stay, Zifa would have even decided to leave the Navy for the sake of his teacher. Although Zifa retains the rank of general, he has basically separated from the general's military affairs and is devoted to teaching in the officer training camp. Even if he is a naval marshal, he cannot go against his personal wishes. As for that bastard Cap, let him investigate the cause of death of the celestial dragon. What a joke! After that bastard found out the news, he would probably just celebrate by eating donuts and laughing and saying a good death. From this point of view, the Warring States period is indeed the only choice. Thinking of this, Cyborg Kong couldn't help gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. The danger level of world destroyer Bundy Waldo is extremely high in the assessment of the Navy headquarters, even surpassing Roger and Whitebeard. After all, Roger and Whitebeard are stronger in strength and power, but under normal circumstances they will not take the initiative to attack civilians or towns, although the former likes to act recklessly. He will not take the initiative to attack civilians under normal circumstances, and he even cooperated with the Navy in the War of the Valley of the Gods. The latter has little ambition and travels around the New World, inviting new members and forming a so-called family, but Bundy Waldo, the lunatic, was different. His slogan is "Destroy everything that stands in my way," and his methods are cruel. In order to achieve his goal, he will not hesitate to attack towns, civilians, and even naval bases. He has huge ambitions to subvert the world government. With the terrifying and destructive power of the Momo fruit, he is far more harmful to world peace than Whitebeard and Roger. It's obviously just a little bit closer to arresting this guy. Damocles looked at Cyborg Kong's uncertain expression and said slowly. Sora, CP's forces have penetrated into the Ward Pirates, and Bundy Waldo can't escape. Cyborg Kong was startled when he heard this. CP has actually infiltrated Bundy Waldo's men. The bald 5 old star, wearing training clothes and wiping his samurai sword with his head lowered, said calmly. This matter ends here. We don't want to waste any more time on this matter. The death of the Tianlong people involves the face of the world government. The truth must be thoroughly investigated. Your Navy must fully cooperate and give us an explanation. Besides, keep the news secret. This incident must be kept secret. I see. Cyborg Kong knew that at this point, there was no point in continuing to argue. Not all Dracos are snot-nosed, bossy, arrogant, stupid and incompetent losers. He is born with power that ordinary people cannot imagine. This kind of privileged identity and background is a breeding ground for idiots, assholes, personality disorders and arrogance. But there will still be a small number of elites with talent, wisdom and force among the Tianlong people. They receive top-notch education from an early age, are guided and trained by the best teachers in various fields, and pass numerous screenings. Finally, as adults, they gradually occupy some core positions in the world government. Otherwise, if all the celestial dragons were psychopathic pigs, the world government would have been finished long ago, and it would be impossible to sustain its 800-year rule. The 5 old stars in front of us, representing the highest power of the world government, are the elite among the elite of the celestial dragons. Their origins will naturally allow them in high positions to maintain the dominance and status of the celestial dragons. This is inevitable. The celestial dragons are supreme and the gods of this sea. This is their bottom line and iron law. No one can break it, and there is no room for bargaining. However, Cyborg Kong vaguely seemed to sense something from Wu Laoxing's last words. Block messages. Add more. During the new book recommendation period, I ask for all support from the big guys. I ask for 5-point praise, I ask for further reading, and I ask for reminders for updates. The data is very important, and I am grateful. Chapter 39: A Good Death. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. North Sea, the area where the world government official ship sank. Over the vast sea, heavy snowflakes are still flying in the gray sky. Yes, Marshal Kong, according to the route provided by the government CP department, I have arrived at the crime scene. On the warship, Sengoku held a military phone bug in his hand and made a report with a gloomy face. He adjusted his black-rimmed glasses and quickly glanced at the sea. There weren't a lot of obvious signs at the scene. Yes, I understand. After hanging up the phone call, Zhangguo couldn't help but let out a long breath. The diving team has been dispatched. The adults take this incident very seriously. A ghostly figure wearing a silk robe and a strange patterned mask appeared next to Sengoku, and a hoarse voice came from under the mask. Warring States nodded, but felt a little disapproval in his heart. The sea was rough, with only a few shipwrecks floating on it. Occasionally, burnt and rotted limbs could be seen, making it impossible to confirm their specific identities. Holy Land Marie Joa has determined the actual time of the crime based on the moment when the Hilda's Saint Life card was burned out. A full 3 hours had passed between the time of the incident and when Sengoku and the others arrived at the scene. 3 hours. The turbulent sea is enough to swallow up all the evidence and traces that may be left behind. At this point, even if we send out diving troops, what's the use? Because a dead celestial dragon went to such great lengths, and even let Bondi Waldo go for nothing, Sengoku felt somewhat unhappy in his heart. But no matter how absurd it is, this is an order issued by the world government after all. No matter how dissatisfied it is, Sengoku will do his best to fulfill it seriously and responsibly. The government has issued a gag order. After all, once this incident is exposed, it will weaken the government's majesty and affect the government's face. It's just that this incident involves the Tianlong people, which is extremely sensitive and difficult, and it is indeed a headache. Warring State subconsciously glanced at the deck not far away, and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. As a general in his headquarters, he was extremely busy, but as his adjutant, Porcellino, that bastard was lying on a beach chair drinking watermelon juice, as if it had nothing to do with him. Porcellino. Warring States couldn't help but grit his teeth and roared angrily. We are on a mission. Hearing Sengoku's voice, Porcellino raised his hands in a gesture of surrender and grinned. It's coming, it's coming. He slowly put down the watermelon juice, stood up from the beach chair and walked over. What did you find? Warring State said angrily. Let me take a look. Porcellino rubbed the stubble on his chin with one hand, pushed up his sunglasses, and observed the crime scene intently. 2 seconds later, he suddenly opened his mouth slightly, as if he had discovered something interesting, and said with an exaggerated expression. It's so terrible. The Tianlong people died so cleanly, not even a bit of minced meat was left. The atmosphere suddenly turned cold. It was unusually quiet on the deck. Quack quack quack. Several crows flew across the sky. Warring States period, CP0, a group of Navy, Porcellino, Warring States period, feeling the rising murderous intent on CP0 next to him, the corners of Sengoku's eyes twitched. He tried hard to suppress the urge to press the yellow-skinned monkey to the ground and beat him up. He gritted his teeth and said. Porcellino, you bastard. Get out of here. Porcellino raised his hands again with an innocent look on his face. Alright. He walked back with regret on his face and muttered. Obviously you asked me to come here to help. Then he lay down on the beach chair and slowly drank some watermelon juice. There's really nothing we can do. Hearing Porcellino's murmur, Sengoku's face turned blue and white, his face twitched, and his fists clenched and unclenched, unclenched and clenched again. I wish I could give myself 2 big slaps. If I had known, I would have asked Sakazuki to be my adjutant. The 2 people who graduated from the military academy with honors as chief graduates at the same time and were called monsters. At least Sakazuki's gloomy kid is not so annoying. How could I be blind and pick this bastard Porcellino in the first place? Warring States covered his forehead with his hands in pain, but I can't regret this. Sakazuki's character is too paranoid, and he adopts extremely extreme attitudes and methods towards pirates, and often even disobeys orders. This is the most intolerable thing in the Warring States period. Although Porcellino would often be so angry that he would fly into a rage, he was still good at obeying orders. Sengoku-chan let out a sullen breath, looking at CP0's cold and indifferent face. He smiled awkwardly and was about to say something. Buru buru, buru bulu. The call from the military phone bug rang suddenly, interrupting Sengoku's words. Warring States frowned, gave CP0 an apologetic look, and connected to the phone bug communication. Hello, I'm Sengoku. A loud and hearty laugh came from the phone. Ha 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 Sengoku. How is the situation over there? You've already dealt with Bundy Waldo, right? I'm done here. You don't know, that guy Qingjiao's head was dented by my iron fist. What a hearty battle, ha 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 ha. The phone bug vividly simulates a pinched nostril laugh. Warring States laughed and said. The green pepper of the cone, the leader of the 8 Treasure Navy, the world-famous iron-headed cone, was actually dented by you. I guess he hates you so much that he gnashes his teeth, Garp. He shook his head. My mission failed. An emergency situation occurred and Bundy Waldo escaped. Emergency? What emergency happened? Garp scratched his head, then winked and said. It doesn't make sense. Hey, Sengoku, could it be that you couldn't defeat Bundy Waldo, which caused the mission to fail? Then you just found an excuse, Warring States said angrily. Go, we're busy here. A world noble celestial dragon was killed in the North Sea. I'm investigating on the orders of the world government. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Sengoku secretly planned to do something bad. Sure enough, Garp's hearty laughter came from the phone bug. Ha 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 ha. A Tianlong died. What a good death. I just don't know which guy killed that kind of garbage, otherwise I would really like to thank him in person. Ha 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 ha. Die beautifully. With Garp's laughter, Sengoku's face became darker and darker. The murderous aura exuded by the CP0 next to him became more and more intense, almost freezing the air. I'm talking about the Warring States period. Isn't it just a Tianlong? If you die, you will die. The Holy Land will catch a lot of those things. You can just check it out and show off. That kind of garbage deserves to die, ha 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 ha. Seeing that Garp was getting more and more enthusiastic as he spoke, Warring States glanced cautiously at the motionless CP0 next to him, and finally couldn't help gritting his teeth and reminding. Garp, you can't say that. He is a world noble with a high status. TCH, Warring States, please stop pretending. Don't think that I don't know. In your heart. Warring States was agitated all over. He hurriedly grabbed the phone bug and shouted angrily. Garp. The CP0 representative of the world government is right next to me. There was sudden silence on the deck. 1 second later. What I just said doesn't count. Withdraw it. Cap on the phone bug made a face of denial, then. Brew. Telephone bug communication was suddenly interrupted. Warring States period. He was stunned for several seconds, then he blinked, coughed slightly, put away the phone, and looked at the silent CP0 beside him. His expression suddenly became extremely serious and dignified, and he said in a deep voice. Well, let's start investigating now. Facing the hollow and indifferent eyes under the CP0 mask, Warring States waved his fist, filled with righteous indignation, and said with a steely voice. At all costs. Investigate. Investigate strictly. We must find out the truth. Chapter 40 Kizaru's Speculation. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The waves were choppy. On the deck of the warship, Senguo looked solemn, with his hands behind his back and pacing back and forth restlessly. The snowflakes falling from the sky remained on his hair and military uniform, but he didn't bother to wipe them away. Wow! Along with the roar of the waves, heads emerged from the sea one after another. It was the diving team. Reporting to the Warring States General, the official ship was completely destroyed, and most of the wreckage was washed away by the sea. No meaningful remains can be found. But what is certain is that the hull of the official ship was destroyed in a very short period of time, and the cannonballs and gunpowder loaded in the cabin were ignited, followed by a fire and explosion. A member of the diving unit dragged his wet body and quickly boarded the warship, saluting the Warring States period and reporting, "Is that really the case?" Warring States' heart sank slightly, although judging from the traces left on the sea, he had already guessed that it would be such a result, but people always have a sense of luck. Warring States frowned and looked at the CP0 members who remained silent. Where's the surveillance phone bug on the official ship? If I remember correctly, according to normal regulations, all official ships of the world government are equipped with surveillance phone bugs to ensure the personal safety of the Tianlong people. CP0 pondered for a second, did not speak, just turned around and walked towards the cabin. Warring States was stunned when he saw this, and immediately understood something, and quickly followed him. After they entered the cabin, closed the door, and made sure there was no one around, the CP0 members slowly took out the video phone bugs from their arms and placed them on the table. The official ship is indeed equipped with surveillance phone bugs. Under normal circumstances, as long as someone boards the official ship, they will be included in the surveillance video of the phone bug immediately. CP0 said in a low voice. The mask with strange patterns as he spoke stared blankly at Warring States, making the latter feel inexplicably uncomfortable. This is the live video of that time. Warring States subconsciously reached out and wanted to open the video phone to play the video. The CP0 suddenly took a step forward, held Zhangguo's hand, and said coldly. This video involves the privacy of the world government and the world's nobility. No matter what you see in it, it is not allowed to be disclosed. Warring States glanced at him. Of course I know. CP0 then withdrew his white-gloved hand, so as the projection of the video phone bug started, a hazy white light soon lit up in the dark cabin. Several surveillance pictures from different angles were presented to Warring States' eyes at the same time. The first thing that catches the eye is that it is a harbor that looks like a white crescent. Due to the clearance, the originally bustling harbor seemed a little deserted. The sky in the background is gray and snowing heavily, giving it a melancholy atmosphere. Warring States saw from a surveillance screen several CP1 members in black suits carrying heavy boxes into the main cabin. Then came Sild Saint, a celestial dragon wearing a glass mask. He arrogantly walked onto the official ship escorted by several CP1s. The sails on the official ship's mast were raised and rattled, and driven by the sea breeze, it sailed out of the harbor. In a series of surveillance pictures from different angles, Warring States saw a little girl whose eyes were red from crying. Her hands and feet were shackled, and she was roughly dragged into a separate cabin by CP members, huddled in a dark corner desperately and helplessly. He saw the CP1 members on the deck who were looking relaxed, smoking cigarettes and joking with each other. He saw the mountains of gold and silver treasures piled up in the main cabin. He saw the Draco torturing a woman with a whip and dancing excitedly to the music of the saxophone. Just a few pictures. He saw heaven and hell on earth, extravagant, lustful and bloody cruelty, glossy and despairing and cold. Only a wall separates them. Pictures of strong contrast appeared in front of the Warring States period at the same time. What he didn't realize was that his fists had been clenched tightly. Suddenly, the surveillance video froze and turned into countless snowflakes. The Warring States period was stunned. Where's the next surveillance video? That he finally came to his senses, took a deep breath to suppress his inner discomfort, and asked stiffly. A hoarse, solemn voice came out coldly from under CP0's mask. That's all the surveillance footage. The surveillance phone bug on the official ship. Just for a moment, the phone signal transmitted by the surveillance phone bug on the official ship was directly interrupted, and the picture disappeared completely. Warring States' heart suddenly jumped and he blurted out. In other words, in less than 1 second, the entire official ship was sunk and everyone on board was killed. At the moment these words came out, even he felt a little unbelievable. The wide distribution of surveillance phone bugs on world government official ships completely eliminates the possibility of anyone sneaking into them, but even if someone really dares to take action against the Tianlong people, he will face the obstruction of the CP members on the ship, although CP-1 is mainly responsible for intelligence collection and analysis in the CP sequence. They are after all elites who have received special training from the government. If nothing else, at least everyone has a combat capability that is not inferior to that of the Navy headquarters school-level officers. Under their obstruction, no matter what, the surveillance phone bug will at least photograph the attacker's appearance or figure, but the surveillance video in front of him was interrupted in an instant. From the perspective of the Warring States period, there can only be one reason that can cause this result. With no one able to react, the attacker destroyed the entire official ship in an instant at a distance beyond the recording range of the surveillance phone bug. CP0 did not speak, but silence is the best answer. Warring States' eyes suddenly became extremely gloomy and solemn. A person who can possess such strength. He crossed his arms and frowned, lost in thought. Destroy the entire ship in an instant. Or a long-range attack. There are not many people who can do this in this ocean, but they are definitely not many, at least according to the Navy's combat power standards. Even the Vice Admiral of the headquarters cannot easily do it. In an instant, thunderous names and domineering faces that made people frightened flashed through Singua's mind. According to our CP department's analysis of the remaining wreckage of the official ship, the ability used by the attacker was not swordsmanship. At this time, the CP0 suddenly spoke. Has the possibility of the great swordsman taking action been ruled out? Warring States was slightly startled, but then shook his head. This is not enough to explain the problem. Long-distance slashing can indeed achieve this, but strong men of this level usually have various attack methods. Whitebeard and Golden Lion are the best examples. As if he remembered something, he took out the military phone bug and dialed the headquarters communication. In less than 3 seconds, the communication was connected. Warring States looked seriously at the phone bug and said, "Hey, Xiaohe, I'm Sengoku. Yes. I am investigating the attack on the world's nobles. Please help me check the movements of the 3 guys, Whitebeard, Roger and Golden Lion, in the past 3 days." What? You said they haven't appeared in Beihai in the past 3 days. Warring States was silent for a moment. Okay, I understand, please, Xiaohe. He put away the phone bug and paced back and forth in the dark cabin, muttering to himself. Isn't it those guys? Then, analyze the situation at the scene, the possibility of attacking the Tianlong people, etc. The most likely attacker should be. Sengoku's stern expression suddenly became a little strange. Bundy Waldo. A long-distance attack instantly destroyed a large official ship. Brutal and ferocious, he attacks the world government and the celestial dragons without restraint. The specific location happens to be in Beihai. If the crime hadn't happened during his hunt for Bundy Waldo, Sengoku would have been sure that world destroyer Bundy Waldo was the attacker. Have you lost your train of thought again? Sengoku rubbed his temples. At this moment, tuck tuck tuck, there was a sudden knock on the door. Sengoku was stunned for a moment, and through his knowledge, color and hockey perception, he determined that the person knocking on the door was Porcelino. He hesitated for a moment, closed the video phone bug, and responded. Come in. Porcelino pushed open the door and entered. General of the Warring States period, I may have guessed who attacked the Tianlong official ship. He walked slowly into the cabin. CP0 raised an eyebrow. Warring States' eyes lit up when he heard this. Do you have any idea? With a smile on his face, Porcelino puffed out his chest and said seriously. Neptune-like creature. He held his head high and looked proud. Warring States period, CP0. The next second, Sengoku's thunderous voice came from the cabin, making the entire warship jump. Get out of here, you bastard. Please give me all your support, thank you very much.